Welcome, and thank you for joining us tonight. This is our Tuesday night podcast here at the Door Christian Fellowship Church in San Carlos, California, and we are glad you're here. And so tonight we're going to be talking about, as usual, we have a topic, and we bring it up, but we want to open it up, keep it fairly open forum for questions. You can put your questions in the chat box. You can put them in the comment section. We'll get to those as we see them. And tonight we're going to be talking about the holidays. It's here. It's on everybody's mind. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, that's up to you to decide. But we're going to talk about how to enjoy the holidays tonight. And so let's just start with kind of like a kind of a blanket question. Now you can kind of answer this however you want. But one of the things that always comes to mind during the holidays is that you have like a lot of people who really enjoy the holidays, and you have other people who the holidays just become like this really sad, almost depressing time. Some people it's just an obligation, other obligation. Some people it's like a time of resistance. I'm reading about the Jehovah's Witnesses and stuff like that don't celebrate Christmas because they say it's pagan in its roots, and Easter is the same way. Whereas in other senses, that's the highest. Has the highest church attendance of any other time of year, Easter and Christmas, the top two highest attended times of church. And so it's interesting to me that you have these it's like Christmas, Easter, just spread out. Everybody sees the holidays different. And so one of the things I wanted to ask is, what do you think is, well, let me just ask you this. What are the holidays to you?
Well, to me personally, it actually has meaning. It didn't have meaning for many, many years. It was just every day was the same, before I gave my life to Jesus. But now, it's not because I gave my life to Jesus. As far as the holiday, it's not. I don't think Jesus was born on December 25th or anything weird like that. But it is the season that we celebrate the birth of Jesus. But beyond that, because to me that's an everyday thing anyway, my salvation for the last 38 years has been about Jesus every day and walking with Jesus every day. And so it's not like this time of year is special from that standpoint. But over the years, I have made it an aim to make this time of year special, mainly from the standpoint of we play Christmas music, decorate our house and stuff like that on purpose. Some of that actually is just another part of my personality. I like anything that's religious. I like doing the opposite of. And so for religious people, particularly like you mentioned, Jehovah's Witnesses and stuff like that are very anti-Christmas, very anti-holidays in general, because they're all pagan. And a lot of people who are of a religious background claim, that Christian Christmas is a pagan holiday and all this kind of stuff. So I thought, well, that's a good reason for me to decorate and to have a Christmas tree and be sure that I have a star on the top and do everything that I know is pagan, because it's traditionally how Christmas has been celebrated, particularly in the United States. And so I thought, well, that's a good way of just telling everybody, I don't give a care what you think about this season. So it's my way of getting back at the universe.
Okay. I actually read by the way, for anybody that's watching, this is, plan on this being relaxed, have fun, throw out some questions. Honestly, this has been a real privilege for me to be able to ask you questions. Sometimes it's tough to ask you questions. Sometimes it's really fun to ask you questions, but I've learned a lot about how to ask questions. And so I feel like I have a bit of an advantage now to be able to learn how to ask questions. And I know that that's a struggle for some people, including myself at one point. That was really hard for me to figure out how to ask questions, but I want people to feel relaxed, just toss in your questions. Even if you think they're stupid, put them in there. You might get made fun of. I'm kidding. You won't get made fun of, but we'll field your questions. We want to have fun with this. And so one of the things I was thinking about, only just kind of came in my mind specifically right now, but while you were talking, is how Christmas kind of became somewhat of a Christian holiday. I don't know how valid this is. I did a whole study into this like years ago, trying to find out why in the world do we celebrate Jesus' birthday on Christmas? Like, because apparently it was I don't know if it's March or like something like, there's like all these theories of when Jesus was actually born, but like we don't exactly know the date. But apparently, you can tell me if this is true or not, but apparently Christians hijacked a pagan holiday.
Well, exactly.
For the form of evangelism or something like that. That was like the whole idea behind it.
Well, yeah, specifically Martin Luther.
Okay.
Martin Luther was the one who began to celebrate Christmas to create a bridge for pagans to come to Christianity, and so he did steal the pagan holiday, even the Christmas tree as well.
Yeah.
The Christmas tree was stolen as well. So all this stuff was stolen. That's, so some of what I said in the beginning is kind of tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of stealing away stuff from the devil, mainly because the devil stole everything in the first place.
Yeah.
And so anything that's been established over the years has been stolen way, way, way back. From the early days of creation, and have been used in idolatrous situations and all these pagan religions and things that formed out of rebellion against the true and the living God. And so that's, so I do say it kind of tongue in cheek, but at the same time I say it, with that thought in mind. It is definitely,
like you're in good company then.
Yeah, it's definitely that thought in mind that Christianity is not a religion. It's the beginning. And it's the beginning of God and everything having to do with God. So any kind of celebrations that are done for God, for a God, should be done for the God, rather than for carved wood or silver or legends or things like that, because Christianity isn't a religion. Christianity is the truth. And I know that many people feel that is a narrow-minded thing to say, but it's very narrow-minded to say that in math 1 + 1 = 2. And it doesn't equal anything else, no matter what. It's not a question of being arrogant or a question of superiority or anything like. It's just a question of facts.
Yeah.
And Jesus is God, and that is a fact. And so when it comes to holidays and things like that, Jesus has to be the center of those holidays.
So we're talking about holidays. We're saying the word holidays, and obviously because right now is specifically, around a holiday, but. Or a couple of holidays, but what do you think is so unique about this holiday specifically? Like, if you think about it, there's a lot of holidays throughout the year, and there's a lot of marketing around holidays as well. And so I don't know if maybe the marketing has just caught a niche during Christmas, or if it's like, if there's something else happening here. What is the big deal about Christmas? Why is it such a big? Worldwide, not just in the United States, but it's a very celebrated holiday.
Well, you say that, and I have to think to myself, if I lived in Australia, would Christmas be as important to me of a holiday? And I don't think it would be, because part of the reason why specifically Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's are so important to me, that's that many more days that I don't think about how cold it is.
You're it's just a distraction.
I hate the cold. I can't stand cold weather. It's been raining. It's been terrible. I don't like the cold. I like when it's warm and sunny. I could live at the beach. I'm a beach person. That's all there is to it. And so when it comes to holidays, for me personally, they're very important. But they are. It is the only holiday that's centered around giving gifts to other people. So to me, that is reason enough to celebrate it, because of the fact that, even though people complain about the commercialization of Christmas and stuff like that, that is a good thing, that we can go out to the store and we can buy stuff for people, not just to do our religious duty or our not even just religious, but our secular duty. Of just, I hate these people, but I got to get gifts for them because it's Christmas and stuff like that. But actually being able to have an attitude that says, I want to get things for people to give to them. It is a good thing. I think that's a very good thing. My wife, thank God, my wife is great at getting gifts. I love being able to give. I hate shopping. And but she comes to me, she wants to buy this, she wants to buy that. We spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars every year on Christmas. We spend, especially for grandkids, the more grandkids we have, it's exponential, the amount of money we spend on their birthdays and Christmas and stuff like that. But I'm fine with it because it's giving, and I like to give because I like to see people happy. And so for me, that's, I think, probably one of the most important things about the holiday. For me, it's seeing other people happy. It's not about me. It's about other people and about seeing other people happy during this time, being able to reach out to other people in various ways.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting you mentioned that, because I was going to ask the next question about how people feel about the holiday in general. Is that you have this, there is kind of like a reputation during Christmas, like I said in the beginning, of some people, it's a time it's really depressing, and for various reasons. I actually did a bunch of research on this. I thought my guess would have been, or was, before I started looking into this, of what would be like the most depressing time of year, and I thought it would be the holidays, whether it's because it's so cold or it's it's a little bit more overcast in a lot of places. Like I couldn't quite pin why it would be, but I just had all kinds of hypotheses of why, and so I looked into it. And actually, spring is the time with the highest depression rate, which is really interesting to me. I have no idea why that is, but why
the end of summer?
Yeah, no, it's spring's beginning of summer. Before
spring, fall.
Before.
Oh, fall.
Yeah.
I got it backwards.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Maybe it's everybody's reeling from the
actually,
winter time.
spring's the exciting time.
Yeah, I know,
like
it's
summer's
the preparation,
coming.
Exactly. So I don't quite know why. I mean, there's like all kinds of. As a matter of fact, you can find a bunch of different opinions on it, but they did say that there is a time during the winter. And during the cold months, they didn't actually call it, specifically around Christmas, but of why people get so depressed during this time of year. But my question, I guess, is why is it such a time of depression for some people? So you enjoy the holidays and you love giving and stuff like that. What is the contrast?
Well, that's you're kind of hitting the nail on the head there. I mean, because it's basically the reason why people are depressed around especially around Christmas time. There have been two very famous books written about this time of year and depressed people, Scrooge,
Dickens, or something
and
like that.
Grinch. And so there you go. Is that it is that there are many people that's what they are. They're Scrooges, they're tightwads. Or they're Grinches. They just hate seeing other people happy, and that is a reality. And the reason why people get depressed during this time of year, when people are actually being happy, when they see people around them that are happy and spending money, because they're selfish and don't want to spend money on other people, it makes this period of time even more difficult for them, because there's this sort of obligation to be the other way. Yeah. And so they lose that opportunity to be able to hide from all this, because it's out in the open. It's everywhere you go, and so you just stay home through all of it all. Like I said, there's some people that are quite happy that, it's COVID season, so they don't have to go anywhere and do anything. They can just stay home and go, oh, no, it's COVID. I didn't do any shopping or buy anything for anybody because it's COVID.
Yeah. So, how do you think God feels about holidays? There's holidays in the Bible that God actually implemented, times that he said specifically, you're going to observe this as a holiday. Every single year, you're going to do this. He actually specifically said, here's how you're going to celebrate it. And what do holidays mean for God? Not specific to Christmas, but just in general.
Yeah. Nothing. They're not anything. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those times where it would be really comfy to anthropomorphize God, or turn to God into a person. This would be one of those very comfy moments to say, well, God loves Christmas just as much as we do. No, every day is the same to God. God says, I'm the same today, yesterday, and forever. And so December 25th is no different than December 26th or December 15th or whatever, to God himself, because that's not God. But that doesn't make God impersonal. It just simply makes him not regard holidays. There's actually, from a biblical perspective, this is one of the things I think is interesting is that you can enjoy life and understand biblical things at the same time. You don't have to make one into the other. You don't have to say, oh, because I want to have fun, I have to somehow rewrite the Bible so that the Bible allows me to have fun the way I want to have fun. No, if you understand God and who God is and how God has made the world. And when it comes to holidays, the Bible's very clear. Some people regard the holidays, and it's a great thing, and some people don't, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. And so to God, that's fine either way. But the issue is it's done unto the Lord. That's the idea. And so celebrating of holidays done unto the Lord is acceptable to God. Not celebrating holidays unto the Lord is also acceptable to God. Mm-hmm. And so from a biblical standpoint, God is he's neutral when it comes to the issue of holidays. He doesn't enjoy it or not enjoy it. But what it means to us and what it means to us to him, he does have a concern for.
Interesting. So what do you think, so what you're saying is God doesn't really look happily upon people that like make it a point to go to church on Christmas time or during Easter to specifically celebrate the birth or resurrection of Jesus Christ. There's not like this, God's like, oh, yes. Thank you for celebrating me.
Yeah, loaded question. Yes, no, God is not into religious people. God is not into religious people. You show up on Christmas and Easter, but not the rest of the year. God doesn't take any notice of that day either, because it still doesn't mean anything. It's not coming to church and it is a celebration. It is anyway. It's a celebration. Every service is a celebration. That's why we sing songs in the beginning of service. It's why we have a liturgy to our services that is more celebratory. It's not this sober, like somebody died. It's funny how some religious services you can't tell the difference between a funeral and a resurrection. There's no difference between the two. They're not, because they're not celebrating anything. When we have funeral services for people who've died in the Lord, they're actually celebration services. They're celebrating that person moving on into eternity and into heaven. So every service is to be a celebration. So when you come just to punch your card and hope that you're going to somehow merit something with God, this is a waste of time. Mm-hmm. It's just another waste of time. I'm glad when people come, because it's an opportunity for those people to get saved. It's an opportunity for them to actually give their life to Jesus. It was around Christmas time when I connected with an old friend of mine, and he began to tell me about Jesus. And so from the beginning from actually Christmas Day through to January the 13th, he was over at my house all the time, So Christmas time for me also does have a little bit of that associated with it as well, is that I actually met Jesus during that period of time.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. So what is like because you're describing something that's very interesting when you think about it. You have somebody who's been a Christian for 38 years, and the way you see holidays isn't unique to other days. Whereas before, you talked about how, actually this is, a plug for a sermon, really. Like your last sermon you mentioned, actually it might have even been before the service. So if you watch that afterwards, you probably won't even get it. But you were talking about how before you got saved, every day was a holiday. It's just
before I got saved, no day was a holiday.
Okay. But every day was just the same.
Yeah, every day was the same. Yeah. No day was a holiday.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, I'm sorry, I misquoted.
Yeah, I would go to the clubs on New Year's, Christmas, Thanksgiving. Those were just days to go to the clubs, and there would be more people. Mm-hmm. Because it's a Thursday. Thanksgiving is a little bit different from Thursday, not Thanksgiving, and whatever day Christmas Day falls on. Mm-hmm. And so there would be more people, at the clubs during those days, than in other days, because they were like, days to party, celebration, where for me it was every day was the same. And so, I say every day was a party. Party's really, we shouldn't even use that word. I mean, I'm glad I wasn't born saved, so I got to learn so much about life. We say things, we're just filthy liars when we're sinners, just filthy, rotten liars about everything under the sun. We say things like homosexuality. We use the word gay. When it comes to taking drugs, we call it partying. So we purposely come up with these words to use on things to make them sound that they're better than they really are.
Yeah.
And so it's quite interesting how we do that, is with things. We take words and label things that they're not better than anything else. It's not like there's being gay is a better lifestyle than being straight, or partying, going to clubs is better than not going to clubs. That's not true. But so we're just, like I said, we're just filthy, rotten letters. And so I think that's where you got the mistake, where you said I was celebrating that every day was a holiday because I said I was partying every day. But
I might have just remembered it mixed up as well.
Partying every day and a holiday are not the same thing.
Yeah. But it's interesting because you mentioned something about how every day is different now. Every day there's something new happening. Like how does that happen? What do you mean? Define that. Like,
I don't know that I would say every day is different. But every day, it's hard to put into words because I've been doing this for 38 years, so there's no feelings involved in this. It's not a thing of emotions. It's a regular experience. But there's a sense of refreshing every morning when I get up. There's a sense of, it doesn't matter what happens today. I know Jesus, and I know I'm going to be okay. No matter what happens, no matter if it's tragedy or triumph, it doesn't matter. I know that Jesus is with me, and I have that confidence, that because Jesus is with me, I know everything's going to be fine. No matter what happens, I know everything's going to be fine, because the worst thing that can happen to me is I won't wake up that day. And that would be the best thing to happen to me. I'm actually going to be preaching a sermon about this. That would be the best thing, is to wake up or not wake up in the morning, or wake up in the morning and be in heaven. That would be the best thing.
So why do you think there is such a peak in attendance during the holidays? What is that in people that? So
well,
you mentioned this religious people.
Yeah, we have to scratch our religious bone.
Yeah, what does that mean though?
Well, people know that there's a God, and they know that God's real, and they know they've been living in sin. And so they're hoping that by going to church on Christmas or Easter, somehow it's going to do something. It's going to somehow, like I always use the phrase, punch their ticket, their get to heaven ticket. They're going to be able to go to heaven because they've been in church.
So you talked about how God doesn't view that, but how does God view that?
How does God view
that type of, I don't want to call it reverence, but religion? Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's nothing, because it's not from the heart. People who are going there are not going there because they're not going to repent of their sins. And so religion is useless without repentance. If there's not a change, because when we talk about, when I say religion, I should probably just say Christianity. Christianity is meaningless without repentance. And so if you're not going to turn from your sin, going to church on Christmas isn't going to change a thing, because it doesn't make any difference. You're there for the wrong reasons.
So since you've been a Christian, have the holidays become more enjoyable, or have they just kind of stayed the same, not necessarily unique other than the distraction from the cold? What is over the last several years?
I can't, I wouldn't say that it's getting better and better or anything like that. I mean, I'm getting older. There are more kids, grandkids. It's more difficult to be able to meet with each other on the holidays, particularly my kids that are in other states. So trying to make that all work is a bit difficult. And some, because I want to see God use their lives more than anything else, the more that God uses their lives, the less I'm going to see them. And so holidays are, for me, they're opportunities. For me, opportunities, they're always opportunities, because usually, at least, I have two kids that are living out of state. And so for me, I usually get to see at least one of them on Christmas. And so for me, that's the thing. Anytime I get to spend time with my kids, and they bring their grandkids, bring my grandkids, For me, that's always a good time. I enjoy being with them as much as possible, because really that's all. This life is about people. It's not about things. And giving gifts are good, and I'm not taking away from that. But for me, it's not about things. It's not about having things. I have, there's been, God's blessed me. I preach about blessing, and so I can say this with all sincerity. God has blessed me financially. He's literally given me money over the years. And so I've been able to do more and more as, over the years. And so there's been an increase in ability to be able to see people, and that for me really is what makes the holidays, is being able to see people. Mm-hmm. Being able to spend time with my family and things like that are very valuable to me, because it is about people. And I love getting together and fellowshipping. Over the years, I should just define what fellowshipping is getting together with people who are spiritually minded people. Not all gatherings are fellowship. Some gatherings are just gatherings, but there are other gatherings that are fellowship. They're genuine times of getting together with people who have a heart towards God. And it may be a casual time. We may be playing games or chatting or whatever, but it's spiritual. We're together with a heart. There's a camaraderie. There's a common understanding of our relationship with God. One of the difficulties of being religious is that it takes away from that, because when you're genuinely saved, you can't fellowship with religious people. Because there's no connection, because I don't know how to describe it. It's just you get I don't know if everybody does, but I get these vibes off of religious people that it's like they're like it's almost like they're hoping I don't find out something about them. It's just we're together and they're like, yeah, let's have a good time, and this is really fun and I'm really enjoying myself. But you can see there's a discomfort of being in your presence when you're saved and when you know God. People there's this discomfort, and I feel that in regular church services sometimes, as people who come to the church services, there's this discomfort. Our relationship is strained, and I know it is, because there are things in their lives that are not right, and they're not clean. They don't have a clean conscience. Mm-hmm. And so but I enjoy being able to get together with people like that, mm-hmm. During the holidays, and that's part of the enjoyment, is just being able to be around people. And then that way, if we talk about the things of God, it's not forced. It's not something that we've got to force to happen. They have an understanding of the Bible like I have an understanding of the Bible, because all my kids are very Bible literate. We can get together and chat about biblical things. And so for having my kids around is also talking about the things of God. They'll ask questions. They'll talk about things that they've gone through, or experiences, or things that have happened, and so there's a genuine comfort in being together, because they with people that are saved, because it's you can talk about things, and you're not, the only way I can describe it is there's a comfort. Yeah. There's a comfort level that I really, really enjoy, that I never had being not being saved. Even if I was with friends who were not saved and we were all partying together and stuff like that, it was always this element in my mind of, this is just a waste of time. Mm-hmm. What we're doing right now is just a waste of time. It's just meaningless, and it doesn't, because I didn't have any purpose for my life. But having purpose, having meaning, being saved, having a good relationship with Jesus, and being around other people that are like that, it's just a constant reminder of what we have to look forward to in heaven.
Mm-hmm. So there was you made the comment about how people who are religious feel around you when they're it's hard to kind of have that level of fellowship. I feel like we should have like a definitions page in the beginning of every textbook has a definitions page at the beginning. I feel like we should just do that. But you're talking about, it almost seems like there should be there could be a unique opportunity for people. Where, you have like the whole holiday, and if talk about so close but so far, like it's all should be focused around Jesus, right? Yeah. And so you have people who have a relationship with Jesus. It becomes exactly that. It's a time where they're celebrating, but it's just the flow of their natural lives, right? Everybody's making time to get together. Sometimes, and since I'm a part of your family, I get to see it firsthand. We have people at my house or your house. At one point, my old house, which was horribly packed, but still, we had a great time together. Yeah. And it's interesting to hear that, but to see it and be a part of it is totally different. And so how can the gap be merged for people? Like people that are listening that might be religious, maybe they don't enjoy the holidays because they feel that way. They're around people who are saved, they're around people who are, in love with Jesus, and they don't have that feeling. They don't have that same connection, and they feel the gap. How do you close that gap?
Yeah. You mean, how do you close that gap as a saved person with those people?
No, as an unsaved person. How do they get that?
Okay.
How do they get what you have?
So I'll do it on two levels. One is dealing with it of people who are just they don't know Jesus. They haven't given their life to Christ. That right there is a very critical element of knowing Jesus, having a personal relationship with Jesus is everything. It's not just a cliche, the idea of Jesus is the reason for the season. But the thought that came into my mind when you were describing some of the things you were just saying is that when you think about, when you know Jesus, okay, when you talk about something being about Jesus, we don't have to pretend that he's in the room, that he's physically there. Yeah. That's not a necessity. We know he's there, but Jesus made it very clear. God is a spirit, and those who worship him in spirit and in truth. And so that understanding that God is a spirit means nothing needs to be strained. You already know God's there because God's there anyway. God's always there, everywhere. There is no place that God isn't. It's just whether or not we are aware of that fact. And the way that we become aware of that fact is by being saved, is having a personal, intimate relationship with Jesus. So for the non-Christian, that really is important, is that if you want to learn how to enjoy life in general, and then on top of that, how to enjoy the holidays even more, you have to give your life to Jesus. You have to be saved and become a part of a church with saved people, not being religious in a religious church. And so that would be, the second level would be religious people. Yeah. Is that I would say refer back to unsaved people, because it's pretty much the same. Is religious people don't know Jesus. They don't have a relationship with Jesus. They just believe in him, but they don't know him. And so that will make that will be everything. Stop being religious and get saved. Come to Jesus, give your life to Christ. There's no reason in fighting over this. Is if you don't have an absolute confidence that when you die you're going to go to heaven, then you're not saved. And at best you're just religious. But being religious isn't any different than being a non-Christian. There's no difference as far as eternity goes, and as far as how your life is. There's no difference. So that's that. And then the final one would be for Christians who are having, because even Christians during this period of time, it's not that exciting of a season for them. And the reason is because their hearts are not right. And what I mean by that is that they have issues with people or with sin that they need to deal with. And so, if you're living in sin, if you're in secret sin as a Christian, you need to just stop. You need to repent of that. There's no point in having one foot in the world and having one foot in the church. You're going to be miserable all the time. It doesn't matter. You're going to be miserable in church, and you're going to be miserable, in your sin, because you can't live in both places. And so, I would go as far as to say, just make your mind up. Either go back to sin and just live in sin, or get your heart right and live for God, because there's no point in trying to be in the middle. And I want to add one other thing to that, is when talking about relationships. I mentioned about relationships. The Bible's very clear that Christians are not to have relationship problems. Period. End of story. They're not to have them. There shouldn't be a relationship issue. And the responsibility for that relationship issue lies with the person who has the issue. The Bible's very clear. Jesus said it many times. He talked about, if you have a problem with your brother, you need to go to your brother and you need to deal with that. And if your brother has a problem with you, then you need to go to your brother and sort that out. And so either way, it doesn't matter whether somebody has a problem with you or you have a problem with somebody else. You need to go to them, and you need to remedy that situation by talking it out. You need to talk it out. And so if you aren't going to do that, then your Christianity is going to be miserable. It's, because God will not allow us to just enjoy life and have relationship problems, because that's not salvation. Salvation is when, Jesus is living inside of you. And so Jesus is dealing with those relationship issues. He's going to deal with us. The Holy Spirit is going to convict us of our problems, our issues with people, and we need to just remedy those things. We need to go to those people, and we need to remedy those situations. Hey, you've got a problem with me, I think, and so I'd like to work this out. Do we want to talk about it or what? And then the other side is, I have a problem with you, and we need to deal with this, and this is my problem, and get it out and discuss it through, not to let these things fester, because they'll just grow and they become bitterness.
Yeah. So you make it sound really easy.
It is.
Hold on. Yeah, I knew you would say that, and so that's why I want to work through the things. But you mentioned there's a few layers here of the different things. People who aren't saved, there's the belief issues. People who are religious, although you're like unsaved people, now you have to go back out of your religion, which I had to do at one point. I had to literally get my head out of religion in order to see things for what they were. And for people who have relationship problems, how do you get past this stubborn thing that says, well, they should fix it? How do you get past these different layers?
Well, that's the thing about salvation that is so important, is that you're not the one making the rules anymore. God is. Yeah. So when you say it's they need to sort this out, well, you're making a rule that contradicts God. So you're the one who's going to suffer because of that, because that's not how it works. It's your responsibility to deal with these issues. And so if you're not going to deal with them in a biblical way, and you're going to deal with them by your own rule book, it doesn't work. You can't write your own rule book. And that's what makes it hard. The Bible says the way of the backslider is hard. And that's interesting that it says it that way, because the idea of a backslider is somebody who's going back to their old life. That's the idea. It's not somebody who's not saved. It does involve that, but it's more than that. It's somebody who's going back to their old life. And so the Bible says that's the most difficult way to live. So when you're ignorant of spiritual things as a person, you're ignorant of spiritual things. Life is a way. Let's just say life is a way. And then when you are a Christian, you become a Christian, life is better. But when you go back to your old life, life is worse than it was before you became a Christian, because now you know the truth and you're being disobedient to the truth. And so when you're living in ignorance, there's a measure of grace, and life is great, but it's okay. But then you give your life to Jesus and you're saved, and then life is great when you genuinely understand Jesus, because your life is no longer dependent on circumstances. And so there's an internal a wholeness that makes life great. But then as a backslider, you go back, it's the worst of everything. It's just absolutely the worst of everything, because you're going back to your old ways, and that is the worst way to be. And that's when your life becomes depressed. And this is why a lot of people who are going that route, who claim to be Christians, end up becoming atheists. You've heard these people that give these, you shouldn't discount this as a Christian, these people that give these testimonies of how they don't believe in God anymore. That's a natural progression, or regression, I should say. That's a natural regression when you're going to live in hidden secret sins, secret disobediences. That's a natural regression to go back to not believing in God. That's not unusual. So there's nothing shocking about these people.
Why is that such a natural regression?
Because that's, the Bible talks about that. Because you're basically unthankful. And so unthankfulness leads you into a life of wickedness, being unthankful to God for what he's done for you. And so when people, I'm saved, I know Jesus, and they have this testimony and everything, and then all of a sudden, I don't believe in God anymore, and they go on record, they want to go on public record that they, this is where they used to be, and they actually become opponents, it should be no surprise, because they're enemies of God. And they're not. It's not that they're neutral. You can't go back to neutral. When you've experienced something, you can't go back to not knowing about it. You've experienced it, and that's all there is to it. You can't go back. You only pretend. And so you can try to twist your conscience around and say there is no God. Try to convince yourself that there is no God and all that kind of stuff. But it's not possible. But it comes from when you've been doing things that you shouldn't be doing, and by coming clean about it means you're going to have to take a lower place, because you've been saying and thinking and believing things that nobody is aware of, and you put yourself on this sort of pedestal in your mind, And what ends up happening is it's like, no, I can't sort these things out. I'm not going to. I'm just going to keep them hidden. And then eventually, you in order to maintain sort of a sanity, you have to start pretending that God isn't real, and things like that. So.
Interesting. So how does the church view holidays? I mean, well, no, that's probably not view holidays, but how does the church celebrate Christmas specifically? Like, is this like an actual time where the church actually sets aside time to celebrate Christmas and make it a special time of year?
Well, I think it's a good idea to make it a special time of year. I think it's a good idea to make every holiday a special time of year. It's a holiday, good reason to go to church.
Yeah.
So that you can get people to come in, especially, which is, we call this Not Your Ordinary Church podcast for a reason. And the reason why we call it that is because it's the idea of not your ordinary church is that we don't want to be ordinary. And so if we can get people to come and see that the church is not ordinary, that can bring them to salvation. That's exactly what happened to me. Mm-hmm. Exactly what happened to me. Going to a church that was not your ordinary church. I walked in, there was a presence of God. There were people there that were serving God, and that God was their main focus in life and not other things. And a few minutes of conversation with these people made that very clear, because they didn't talk to me about their job. They didn't try to divert conversation about God and about Christianity into secular things, which was something that you see in what I call your ordinary church or your denominational church or religious church, is that God is only a facade. God isn't actually the real aim of anything.
Yeah.
And so I think the church really should, emphasize as much as it possibly can, so that people will come and be a part and get saved.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about religion a little bit, because that was another one of the things I was thinking about in this subject, is that the holiday is very religious. It's become, actually, there's I can't remember the term. I didn't put it down in my notes, but there was a Catholic Day of Requirement or something like that. It's literally like a day where Catholics are apparently required to go to church. Or maybe it was like Roman Catholics or something like that, like some sect of Catholicism. But there was like a day during Christmas that it's actually a requirement. And so if you don't go, you're like not a good Catholic. And so there's like this pull to everybody who says they believe in Jesus, they have to do this. Mm. And so there are some churches, and I don't know of all churches, but that obviously this is the case in some places, that you actually are required to do certain things like this. Mm. And if you do it, you're a good religious person. Mm-hmm. So what is the difference between, just a good religious person and somebody who, like what you're describing for yourself? What's the difference between the two? Like, even people who they do what, the church requires more often than just the holidays, but they're good religious people. Yeah. What's the difference?
Well, that's the
we emphasize this a lot, and so I know that some of this is repetitive.
That's the funny thing. Nothing is required, because required insinuates
day of obligation. That's
day of obligation. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Requirement. Obligation. Obligation is quite a different term than requirement.
Yeah.
Obligation.
I'm so glad you said that.
That puts things in its right perspective, because it's an issue of responsibility. That's different from requirement. Requirement is you have to be here even if you're irresponsible. Mm. You have to be here. Okay. It's like, you have some irresponsible person and you say, you have to be here. But there's a difference between saying you're obligated to be here and you have to be here. Obligated, you might say, well, what is the difference? Well, when you say you have to be here, it's the idea of there's no option in that. Obligation is the idea of knowing that you have the responsibility to be there. Mm-hmm. And so I think that is very important as a Christian to understand that we are obligated to a lot of things. There is a lot of things we are obligated to, but we're not required to do anything. Mm. There's nothing required, because when you're only fulfilling things out of requirement, those things don't have any merit anyway. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm required to go to church on Sunday, or I'm required to be involved in ministry, or I'm required to do this or that or the other thing. If you are doing it and that's why you're doing it, when you stand before God, he's going to say, no. He's going to put a match to that, and it's just going to go up in flames. It's going to mean nothing. The Bible says our works are going to be judged, with fire. And God's going to put a match to those things. They're just going to disappear. So you might as well not do them if that's how you feel. It's just requirement. But the idea of obligation, Paul even talks about the idea of, he said, if I don't preach the gospel, he said, woe unto me if I don't preach the gospel, because I've been placed under obligation. Now, there's an obligation there, that he carries about within himself. I have to do this. Not an external, I have to do this, but that I have to do this is coming from within his own heart. And he's saying, I have to do these things. I need to be in church. So like I could say for me personally, I need to be in church every time the church doors are open. I need to be in prayer before service, praying and preparing my heart. I need to praise and to worship God. Okay. I need to listen and pay attention to the sermon. I need to be ready, if God is dealing with me, to answer the altar call and thoroughly deal with my heart before God on what he's spoken to me from the sermons. See, these are all things that for me, I have to do because they're an obligation that I carry. Mm-hmm. And that obligation makes me responsible to those things. But to say, I have to come to church on Sunday, or I have to be in prayer meeting, or I have to do this, or I have to do that, or I have to do the other thing. If that's my attitude about it, then it's just the same as if I didn't do it at all, because those works are going to be burned.
Yeah, we got a question. What's the balance between making Christmas special as a Christian and just getting stressed and trying to make it special? I don't know if that makes sense.
It does, but that's the same thing. It's the difference between requirement, and obligation. Uh-huh. When you're obligating yourself to certain things, the idea of stress shouldn't even play into it.
Yeah. Let me pull on that a little bit, because that's actually growing up. I should say after I started becoming when I started trying to grow up anyway. I felt like the holidays were an obligation. I felt like a lot of things were an obligation. I didn't enjoy them at all.
No, a requirement.
But that's the way I saw it.
You saw it as a requirement.
Okay, so you're talking about just a pure difference. So what's the difference between somebody having obligations and making it a requirement to themselves? It is a requirement for you. You've made that, right?
No, this is my whole point. This idea of requirement and obligation are two separate words. Mm-hmm. Don't try to use the word requirement as a redefinition of obligation. Mm-hmm. The way that I'm being is very clear. Requirement is you have to do this. Whether you want to or not, doesn't matter.
So there's an issue of
an
force.
Obligation is something that you carry yourself. Uh-huh. You carry this. I have an obligation to do this. Mm-hmm. You do that.
So how do you enjoy obligations?
How do you enjoy obligations? I'm trying to think of a way to say it.
Or how does somebody make something that they see as how does something that's a requirement for them now become an obligation later?
Well, this is the thing. See, this idea of requirements, is that's the problem. And that's where the stress comes from. I have to do this and I don't want to.
Okay. Yeah. Now you're giving the contrast.
Yeah. Obligation is I have to do this and I'm going to do this,
Yeah.
And so I might as well want to do this. It's like, this is pointless.
Yeah.
Why turn this into a requirement?
Yeah.
It's my responsibility. So why not enjoy it?
Yeah.
So when it comes to that, that question is that's the idea is the difference is I don't want to do this. I have to do this. It's just a requirement, where if the, and there are, like I said, there are things in life that are obligation, and that doesn't make them easy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's an obligation, and so it's easy to do. No, but at the same time, like for example, for me, buying gifts for my wife. Okay. I want to buy gifts for her, but the problem that we have, especially now, is because it's just her and I, and so our bills are not that high. We've got a great deal. We're paying $1,000 right now under market for people in the same size house that we're in. And I know some people listening in different parts of the country would go, "Oh my God, you mean you're not paying rent?" $1,000 less.
Yeah.
$1,000 would make it what, like $1, $2? But for us, no, that's $3,000. It's about $4,000, actually more than that. I'm just giving ballpark numbers, but we're able to do it. We're able to meet those things, and so it's just her and I. So our food bill's not super high, and our usage of water and electricity and things like that. And the thing that I found impossible to do, having kids, because everybody blamed everyone else. Now there's only 2 people in the house, and so we know whose fault it is, because if it's not mine, we know whose fault it is.
Yeah.
And that's
Alex's.
all there is to it. And so that's all there is to it. So when I go into the refrigerator and I go, where's my energy drink? Well, I know Mariah took it because there's nobody else. She doesn't do that, but I would know.
Yeah.
And so
she takes mine.
So the point that I'm making in this is that it's become a lot easier for me and for us over the years. But buying gifts, that's become harder and harder and harder as time goes on, because we're in this situation, we usually just buy what we need. We're not putting it off waiting for somebody to buy it for us as a gift. Mm-hmm. It's like we need it. It's something that's going to be used, because I only have one rule in our lives. I don't care what you buy as long as you use it. There's nothing I hate worse than buying stuff and having it just end up, in a closet somewhere because, oh no, I lost interest.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it. I actually went through a list and thinking in my own life, thinking, is there anything that I have in our garage that is there because I've just got tired of using it, that I actually paid for, and I couldn't come up with anything. There are things in the garage that I got tired of using, but I didn't buy them. And that's why I didn't buy them, because I knew I would get tired of them and they would be in the garage. They are things that people have given me, or things that I've gotten off Craigslist or something like that for free, and thought, oh, it's free, I'll try it, see what I think. And now it's just sitting in the garage. And there's not a whole lot of those kinds of things either. Most of the stuff that's in the garage is utility.
That's why I don't buy you presents, because I have no idea what you would use.
Well, see, this is the problem with me and my wife, is because we're both like this now. We both just buy what we want. And so trying to come up with things. And so I'm usually relegated to having to have her tell me what she wants, because I can't come up with anything. There are some things that I know she likes, but we're not in the situation to be able to get those things anymore. She really liked these. It was perfect for me for Christmas. It was always, I knew I could just go. There was a glass blower place, and they made these. They actually didn't make them. There was another woman who made them, but they made these pieces of jewelry out of shuttle plastic. It was space shuttle plastic, and it was this. They did this cool stuff with injecting different colors in, so you get these, sort of fractal-looking colors of jewelry. You get earrings or bracelets or necklaces or whatever. You can have all these different kinds of things. So it was like, yes, I knew every year all I had to do was go in there and pick out one of the, because I knew she would like it no matter what. So it's like, yes. But now we live here, and it's like, I don't know of any place that even sells those things anymore. And so other than that place, and trying to get it from Gibraltar crystal would be a nightmare. trying especially now, more than ever. Be like, okay, 2 months early, and you have to know exactly what you want.
Space shuttle glass.
Well, it's plastic.
Okay,
it's not glass,
plastic.
actually.
Ah, okay. Well, Mariah was
it's
fooled.
It's an acrylic.
No, she wouldn't enjoy it.
Yeah, it's an acrylic.
It's not glass.
They call it space shuttle glass, but it's an acrylic. But yeah.
By the way, thanks for that confession. That must be a pregnancy confession, Brittany. Okay, so Kay's asking, I think you'll understand the question here. Would the idea of a perfectionist play into obligations versus requirements?
Well, now here's a big problem, and I know that Kay is speaking out of being a perfectionist. That is a big, big problem. You have to stop being a perfectionist. I know what that's like. I was like that, and you have to stop being like that, or you drive yourself nuts. Because you hold yourself to this in an unachievable level. And okay, I'm just going to go ahead and say, as a woman, that's even worse.
What?
Yeah,
We're about to get shut down right now. Canceled.
Yeah, is it going to get canceled? that's going to be even more difficult because of the emotional element. Actually, no. Let me qualify that. Not being a woman, being emotional. Being emotional, and I do need to qualify that because there are a lot of emotional men today. You know, I'm 60 years old, and so men used to not be emotional.
You're asking
and
to
so
be canceled
calling,
right now.
So calling somebody a woman, or not calling somebody a woman, but saying a woman in terms of gender differences between men and women.
Yeah.
You know, is not the same as it was in the 80s. In the 80s, when you said, like, for example, a woman would do this and a man would do that, everybody knew what that meant. But now nobody knows what that means anymore because there's so many men that are you know, they've been raised in single parent homes by women, and they've never actually been exposed to masculinity, true, genuine, wholesome, healthy masculinity, where you learn how to, you know, shove your emotions down so you can get the job done and things like that. So you can be the man of the house or things like that. And so a lot of that's gone by the wayside. And I know there are people screaming and yelling that will be watching this, but I'm sorry, you know, I'm sorry you weren't born in the 80s so that you could understand the difference between a man and a woman. But that really is what it comes down to is that we have a lot of men today who've been raised by women and have lost that element of masculinity. And so going back to the whole point here off of that diversion, is that being a perfectionist and being emotional is a recipe for disaster. It's a recipe. So either you're going to be a perfectionist and unemotional, or you're going to be emotional and not be a perfectionist. You have to, you know, do something about that. And for me, I've had to, you know, from the standpoint of being a perfectionist, having to allow myself, you know, to have you know, some slack, you know, not holding myself to some high, you know, thing that nobody else does. Because what ends up happening is it just makes it difficult to maneuver through life. You know, life is like being on a boat, you know, a trolling boat in murky water, you know, and you just have to maneuver through. And so it's not always an easy thing to do, and it's not always your fault because the waters are murky. And so you don't know what you're going to run up against. And so you can't always, you know, if life was just clear water, then you could hold yourself accountable for everything, but you can't. You can't, because there's too many things that are like, nah, I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't prepared. Yeah, that was stupid. Yeah, what I did was ridiculous. Yeah, I'm getting stressed out over nothing, but I didn't think these things were going to happen, you know? And so because of that, you have to learn how to give yourself a break and just learn how to you know, correct course, you know? Okay, this hit me. I wasn't ready for it. I made a dumb decision, whatever. I'm not going to get stressed out about it. I'm just going to make a course correction and just do the best that I can with what I've got.
So again, you're making this sound so simple, but we're 3 minutes to 8. So last minute questions, throw them in. We're not pushing this, but you guys throw them in. Okay. So it sounds like from this whole conversation, there's a lot going on in people that can make this really complicated. It can be, you know, maybe you're a perfectionist, you feel required, you're religious, you have relationship problems, maybe the holidays remind you of, you know, a bad past, you know, your heart's an empty hole, you're a Scrooge, you know, all these things that can play into not enjoying the holidays. And what you're talking about sounds so much more relaxed and laid back. So let's disconnect the highly functioning sociopath excuse for everybody and tell us how that happens. How do you get there?
Well,
is there a one-liner for this?
No, go back and listen to the podcast because I've put a lot of that stuff out there.
I know. I'm asking you to simplify it. So we talked about all of it.
To summarize, to summarize honestly, I think. Well, you need Jesus to be able to do this. So that is. I can't separate it. I can't simplify it any more than to two parts. Is one, you need Jesus. You have to have Jesus. And number two, you need to make sure that you have gotten all of your relationships addressed. That there's peace within your relationships with those that you have control over. If there are people that just are problem people, they're problem people. But when I say problem people, I mean people that you've tried to speak to, but there's no getting through to them. They've chosen to be angry or bitter or hide or whatever, but make peace. The Bible says, blessed are the peacemakers, for theirs is the kingdom of God. And so the idea of being a peacemaker especially during the holidays, be a peacemaker. Make peace with as many people as you can. I have lists of people that I try to make peace with over the years, and I try from time to time people that I've known for many, many, many years, and I give them a call or I text them or I try to have a conversation with them just to find out if maybe anything's changed, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes people have chosen they want to be miserable, and there's no. I think that they've reprogrammed their minds in such a way that they've become actually they enjoy misery. And so that makes it difficult, because you can't have a relationship with somebody who enjoys being miserable. So as much as possible, the Bible says it is as much as possible be at peace with all men. That has to be it. And so, like I said, you can only do that with Jesus. So that is really the issues.
Okay, Kay's question: how can you tell a person is a perfectionist?
Well, I think it's we're kind of going off on a tangent as we're wrapping things down here. I don't think that's really, we know personally if you're a perfectionist or not, and it doesn't matter if you know of other people who are perfectionists or not. I'm not a big fan of how can you tell if somebody is like this types of questions, mainly because we're not the judges. We're not the judges of other people.
That's why I don't ask them anymore.
Huh?
That's why I don't ask them anymore.
The judge. We're not to be the judges of other people. We can describe personalities and things like that for us to search our own hearts over, but to try to find out whether or not somebody else is like that, that's immature. That's immature, and only immature people do that kind of a thing. Mature people aren't trying to figure out who and what and how people are, trying to categorize people, individuals. It's one thing to say that this is a category, that's a reality, but to try to say a certain individual is this category. Like I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and they're probably not listening to this podcast, so I don't need to worry about it anyway. But they were describing somebody, and they said, "Well, that's how that person is," and I said, "You don't know that. You can't say that. You don't know what a person is. You don't live inside their head. That's just your opinion of somebody. It's not who they are." He said, "Oh no." He said, "Oh no. I can tell you for sure that's I know you come on, and actually said it to me, and it's like, no, I don't, because I don't judge people like that. I don't look at people and say this is what they are, because number one, people can change. Number two is that, like I said, I'm not the judge. It's not my responsibility. But we're kind of going on away from the.
Yeah. Well, this does have to do with people. Yeah. Well.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. People like that are miserable.
Yeah.
That's what I mean about people who are miserable. People like that are genuinely miserable people. They're hard to have a relationship with because they're good one day and then they're bad the next.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like one of the issues with having problems with people is that you always have problems with people.
Yes.
It's really.
Yeah, it's just the reality is that you're gonna have problems with people because people are people.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like I said, as much as possible, try to be at peace with all men. And I do, like I said, I have a list of people. I mean, it's not a written list, but in my mind, there are people that I've known over the years that I try to make contact with and try to reconcile. That's the right word, is just try to reconcile with them. And, some just don't want to, they just don't want to reconcile. There's fortunately nobody in my mind that is my enemy, that I think, okay, these people, they've become my enemy and they're out to get me or anything like that. There's nobody like that in my life, fortunately. These are just things of people who, and the funny thing is it's usually people who think that their way of thinking is the way that everybody should think. And they're hard. Those are hard people to get along with, is because they look at the world through their own eyes and their own experience, which is very limited and very narrow, and then think, Everybody should be like this. When they don't even know 90%, well, like how about 99% of what life is really like, you know, and how other people experience life. You don't even have any idea. You've never been there. You don't even know what that's like. How many people know what it's like to be a billionaire, but yet they know everything about what it's like to be a billionaire. You know, they've never been a billionaire, but oh no, I know what it's like to be a billionaire, and that, you know, because you can see it. This guy acts like this, and this guy acts like that, and that guy acts like that. So I know what it's like to be a billionaire. No, you don't. You know, because it's your personality. When you get $1 billion, you don't even know who you are until you get $1 billion.
Yeah. Very good. Well, how's it going, Tato? Welcome to the stream.
He always finishes with a final, and with our final applause.
I'm not sure if that's a hello or a goodbye, or if that's a shut up already.
Okay, you've made your point. Get off.
Listen, we're glad you joined us tonight. You know, we'll be here again next week. Come and join us, but more than that, come and be involved. And we want your questions. They've been good questions, and we're just having a good time. We're enjoying living for Jesus. We're enjoying being in each other's company. And the truth is, you can be a part of that. You can be a part of what God's doing. He's created a family that's a lot. It's similar in the closeness, but it's a lot different from your blood family. And I'm telling you right now, you can be a part of this. And so we want to invite you to join us. We have a midweek service tomorrow night. We will be here at 1100 Industrial Road in San Carlos, California, Suite 10. We have plenty of parking, and you can come and join us and enjoy the presence of God, time of worship, hearing the Word of God preached. And we look forward to seeing you guys in the very near future.